I never thought I'd see my own mother's face twisted with such cold fury. Not at me, and certainly not at my little Lily. But there she was, a silhouette against the storm-battered porch light, her voice cutting through the downpour like a shard of ice. "Get out," she screamed, the wind whipping her words away almost as soon as they left her lips. "I don't want either of you in my house a second longer." I stood there, soaked to the bone, my arms wrapped tightly around Lily, who was shivering so hard I could feel it through her thin jacket. Her face was buried in my side, tiny sobs shaking her small frame. My own mother. My own flesh and blood. She'd just thrown us out into a torrential New England rainstorm, with nowhere to go. The porch light flickered once, then died, plunging us into near darkness, save for the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated the ancient oak trees in her yard, their branches thrashing like angry arms. I could still hear the click of the lock as she slammed the door shut, a final, definitive sound that echoed the breaking of something inside me. "Mommy," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible over the drumming rain, "I'm cold." My heart ached, a deep, hollow pain that felt like it would never heal. "I know, baby," I choked out, pulling her closer, trying to shield her from the relentless assault of the weather. "I know. We'll be okay." But even as I said it, the words felt hollow, like a desperate lie. We weren't okay. We were far from okay. Just an hour before, we'd arrived at my mother's quaint, meticulously kept Victorian home, a place that used to be my sanctuary, my refuge. I'd grown up there, every creaking floorboard, every sun-drenched window holding a memory. Lily adored her Grandma Susan, and Grandma Susan, despite her often stoic demeanor, always seemed to have a soft spot for Lily. Or so I thought. We'd driven 6 hours from New York City, a last-ditch effort after my life had completely imploded. My husband, Mark, had left me. Not just left, but vanished, taking every penny from our joint account, leaving behind nothing but a stack of bills and a cryptic, heartless note. The apartment lease was up, I'd lost my job a month prior, and with nowhere else to turn, no savings, and a 5-year-old who deserved better than sleeping in our beat-up old Honda Civic, I swallowed my pride and called my mother. She'd sounded hesitant. "It's a lot, Sarah," she'd said, her voice tight. "You know how I like my space. And Lily, she's so energetic." My stomach had clenched, but I pleaded. "Mom, please. Just for a little while. Until I can get back on my feet. We have nowhere else to go." After a long, agonizing silence, she finally relented. "Fine," she'd sighed, "but you have to understand my rules. No late nights, Lily needs to be quiet, and you'll both help around the house. This isn't a hotel." I'd agreed to everything, grateful for even that small crumb of hope. Lily, oblivious to the underlying tension, had been ecstatic. Grandma's house. We get to see Grandma. The drive had been grueling, the old Honda struggling with the mileage, the radio crackling in and out, reflecting the fractured state of my life. Lily had fallen asleep in the back, her innocent face pressed against the window, dreaming of a safe haven. I'd harbored a sliver of hope that seeing us, seeing her only daughter and granddaughter in such a desperate state, would soften my mother's edges. I was wrong. So terribly, devastatingly wrong. When we pulled into her driveway, the storm was just beginning to brew, the sky a bruised purple. My mother was waiting on the porch, her arms crossed, a disapproving frown already etched on her face. "You're late," she'd stated, not as a question, but a condemnation. "Traffic, Mom," I'd mumbled, helping a groggy Lily out of the car. "And the weather." She merely nodded, then surveyed our meager belongings piled in the trunk. "That's all you have?" she'd asked, an eyebrow raised. "It's enough, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice even. The first few hours were a tightrope walk. Lily, naturally, was excited. She ran around the living room, giggling, exploring, completely unaware of the suffocating tension. My mother watched her like a hawk, her lips pressed into a thin line. Every little noise, every dropped toy, seemed to grate on her nerves. I tried to keep Lily entertained, to keep her quiet, but she was a child, full of life. At dinner, a silent, tense affair of roast chicken and boiled potatoes, Lily accidentally knocked over her milk glass. It wasn't a huge spill, just a small puddle spreading across the antique lace tablecloth. My mother gasped, a sharp, dramatic sound. "Lily! Look what you've done!" Lily's eyes welled up instantly. I am sorry, Grandma." "Sorry doesn't clean up milk, does it?" my mother snapped, already dabbing furiously with a napkin, her movements jerky and angry. "Mom, it was an accident," I interjected, trying to defend my daughter. "I'll clean it." "No," she barked, straightening up, her eyes blazing. "You know what, Sarah? This isn't working. This whole situation isn't working." My heart sank. "What are you talking about?" "This chaos. This disruption," she gestured vaguely around the room. "I told you I needed rules. I told you I needed peace and quiet. And look at this. Your daughter is a menace, and you're just as irresponsible as you always were." Her words hit me like physical blows. My past, my mistakes, all of them dredged up and thrown in my face. It was the same old pattern, the same accusations, the same feeling of never being good enough. "Mom, please," I begged, my voice cracking. "We have nowhere to go. Just give us a chance." "A chance," she scoffed, her voice rising. "I've given you chances your whole life, Sarah. And you always squander them. You always make a mess. You think I don't know why Mark left you? You think I don't know why you lost your job? It's always the same with you." Lily, sensing the shift in tone, started to cry openly now, her small hands covering her ears. "Stop fighting," she wailed. That's when my mother snapped. She pointed a trembling finger at the door. "Get out. Both of you. Get out of my house right now." I stood there, stunned into silence. My own mother. Kicking us out. In the middle of a storm. "Mom, you can't be serious," I whispered, my voice thick with disbelief and hurt. "Oh, I'm serious, all right," she practically shrieked. "Get your things and go. I'm done with you, Sarah. I'm done with your drama, and I'm done with that child." She flung her hand towards Lily, who recoiled as if struck. That was it. That was the line. She could say whatever she wanted about me, but attacking my daughter, my innocent, terrified little girl, was unforgivable. A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach, replacing the familiar ache of disappointment with a searing, unfamiliar rage. "Fine," I said, my voice dangerously low, my eyes narrowed. "Fine. We'll go. But don't you ever expect to see us again." And with that, I grabbed Lily's hand, pulled her close, and walked out of the house. The rain was already coming down in sheets, the wind howling a mournful tune. My mother followed me to the porch, her tirade continuing, until I was off the steps and halfway to the car. Then came the final, chilling get out, and the slam of the door. Now, here we were. Standing in the darkness, the rain plastering my hair to my face, my daughter sobbing against me. The car felt a million miles away. "Mommy, where do we go?" Lily whimpered, pulling at my sleeve. I looked around, rain stinging my eyes, trying to formulate a plan, any plan. The nearest town was 10 miles away. No cell service out here, deep in the rural outskirts. My phone was nearly dead anyway. My wallet held less than $50. "We need to get to the car, baby," I said, trying to infuse my voice with a confidence I didn't feel. "It's okay. We'll figure it out." We stumbled through the mud and puddles, the beam of an occasional lightning flash showing us the way. Getting Lily into the car was a struggle, her small body shaking uncontrollably from the cold and fear. I peeled off my soaked jacket and wrapped it around her, cranking the heat up as high as it would go. She huddled in the passenger seat, knees drawn to her chest, still trembling. I started the engine, the familiar rumble a small comfort in the vast silence of the storm. But where to go? I racked my brain, desperately searching for an option. Friends? All scattered, most in the city, hours away. Other family? My father had passed years ago, and my mother was an only child, just like me. My ex-husband's family was out of the question, they'd never approved of me. Then, a name surfaced from the depths of my memory, a faint flicker of possibility. Aunt Carol. My mother's estranged sister. I hadn't seen her since I was a teenager, since a huge, unspoken fight had torn the sisters apart. I barely knew where she lived, only that it was somewhere further north, deeper into the New England wilderness. But she was family. Maybe she'd help. She was my last, desperate hope. "We're going on an adventure, sweet pea," I said, trying to make my voice light, despite the tremor in my hands. "We're going to find Aunt Carol." Lily lifted her head, her eyes red and swollen. "Aunt Carol?" "Yes," I nodded, "she's very nice. She makes the best cookies." It was a lie, I barely remembered her, let alone her baking skills, but I needed to give Lily something to cling to. I drove slowly, carefully, the old Honda battling against the wind and rain, the headlights barely piercing the gloom. The roads were slick, visibility almost zero. Every mile felt like a victory, every turn a potential disaster. I drove on sheer adrenaline, fueled by a simmering anger and a fierce, protective love for my daughter. I wouldn't let my mother break us. Not now. Not ever. It took hours, what felt like an eternity, of winding rural roads and dwindling gas. My phone, miraculously, flickered back to life just long enough to get a rough GPS fix on Aunt Carol's last known address before dying for good. It was even further than I'd thought. We finally pulled into a small, unpaved driveway as the first hint of dawn began to gray the eastern sky. The rain had softened to a drizzle, but the air was still bone-chillingly cold. Aunt Carol's house was a charming, albeit slightly dilapidated, farmhouse, nestled among a cluster of towering pine trees. A faint light glowed in one of the downstairs windows, a beacon of warmth and hope. I took a deep breath, woke Lily, and we slowly made our way to the front door. My heart pounded in my chest. What if she turned us away too? What if she was just like my mother? I knocked tentatively. Silence. I knocked again, louder this time. After a moment, I heard shuffling footsteps, then the creak of the door. A woman, her face lined with age but her eyes surprisingly vibrant, peered out. Her hair, once probably a rich brown like my mother's, was now a stunning silver. "Sarah," she whispered, her voice laced with surprise and a hint of something else I couldn't quite decipher. "Is that really you?" Tears, hot and unexpected, sprang to my eyes. "Aunt Carol," I choked out, I need your help." She took one look at our bedraggled state, at Lily's tear-streaked face, and her expression softened. Without a word, she opened the door wide. "Come in, both of you. You look half-drowned." Stepping into Aunt Carol's home was like stepping into a different world. The air was thick with the scent of wood smoke and cinnamon, a comforting warmth radiating from a stone fireplace in the living room. Sunlight, finally breaking through the clouds, streamed through a large window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Aunt Carol led us straight to the kitchen, bustling about, putting a kettle on the stove. Sit. You both look frozen." She produced 2 mugs of steaming hot cocoa for us and a plate piled high with homemade cookies. Just as I'd told Lily. A small, bittersweet laugh escaped me. "Now," she said, her gaze gentle but firm, "what in heaven's name happened?" And so, I told her everything. About Mark, about losing my job, about the desperate plea to my mother, and finally, about the horrific scene on the porch. As I spoke, the dam I'd been holding back finally broke. Tears streamed down my face, hot and stinging, a mixture of pain, exhaustion, and relief. Aunt Carol listened patiently, her expression growing increasingly grim. When I finished, she sat silently for a long moment, stirring her tea. "Susan," she finally said, her voice quiet. "She hasn't changed a bit, has she?" "She kicked us out, Aunt Carol," I whispered, the disbelief still raw. "Her own granddaughter." Aunt Carol sighed, a heavy, world-weary sound. "Sarah, your mother, she's always been a difficult woman. Controlling. Judgmental. It's why we don't speak. But to do this is beyond the pale." She shook her head. "Well, you're safe here now. You can stay as long as you need. We'll figure things out." Those words, "you're safe here," were like a balm to my raw soul. Lily, comforted by the warmth and the cookies, was already starting to perk up. She looked at Aunt Carol with wide, curious eyes. Over the next few days and weeks, Aunt Carol became our guardian angel. She wasn't rich, but her home was filled with love and warmth. She helped me look for jobs, connected me with local resources, and most importantly, she gave Lily a sense of stability and normalcy. She made me feel seen, valued, and loved, something I hadn't felt from my own mother in years. As I slowly pieced my life back together, a new emotion began to simmer beneath the surface of my gratitude, a quiet, determined resolve. The pain of my mother's betrayal was still there, but it was hardening, shaping itself into something new. I wasn't going to let her get away with what she'd done. Not just for me, but for Lily. My daughter deserved to know that people couldn't just treat you like that and walk away unscathed. Aunt Carol, sensing my shift, watched me with knowing eyes. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, Lily asleep in the next room, she finally spoke. "You're thinking about it, aren't you?" "Thinking about what?" I asked, feigning innocence. "Revenge," she stated simply, her gaze unwavering. My breath hitched. I hadn't even consciously admitted the word to myself, but she was right. "She hurt Lily, Aunt Carol," I said, my voice tight with emotion. "She broke my heart, but she terrified my daughter. She threw us out into a storm with nowhere to go." "What kind of mother does that?" Aunt Carol nodded slowly. "The kind of mother who thinks she's always right, and everyone else is always wrong. The kind of mother who thrives on control. I know her, Sarah. Better than anyone." She paused, then continued, her voice lower. "But be careful. Revenge is a tricky thing. It can consume you." "I just want her to understand the pain she caused," I said, my fists clenched. "I want her to feel a fraction of what we felt." Aunt Carol didn't try to dissuade me, nor did she egg me on. She just listened, her presence a quiet understanding. The idea for my revenge started small, a seed planted in the fertile ground of my hurt. My mother, Susan, was obsessed with appearances. Her carefully curated life, her pristine home, her impeccable reputation in their small, affluent community, these were her treasures. To expose her, to show everyone the cold, cruel woman she truly was, that would be a fitting punishment. I started by doing some digging. Aunt Carol, despite their estrangement, still had a surprising amount of information about my mother's activities, especially her involvement in various local charities and women's clubs. My mother was the darling of the Ladies of the Lake, a prominent social group known for their elaborate fundraisers and exclusive events. Her reputation as a philanthropic pillar of the community was everything to her. My first step was to get a job. Aunt Carol helped me secure a position as a receptionist at a local veterinary clinic. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and it gave me access to a computer and a phone, which I used discreetly to gather information. I spent evenings poring over news articles, social media posts, and public records, meticulously building a profile of my mother's public life. The more I learned, the more disgusted I became. My mother's charitable work was often more about self-promotion than genuine generosity. She would often inflate her contributions, take credit for others' hard work, and subtly undermine anyone who threatened her spotlight. She was a master manipulator, cloaking her ambition in a veil of polite society and false piety. My plan began to take shape, intricate and precise, like weaving a delicate but deadly web. I wouldn't physically harm her. I wouldn't break any laws. I would simply pull back the curtain and reveal her for who she truly was. And I would start with the biggest event on her social calendar, the annual Gala for Gables, a charity ball hosted by the Ladies of the Lake, chaired by none other than my mother. It was where all the prominent members of their community would gather, dressed to the nines, ready to celebrate their supposed benevolence. I learned that the gala was being held at the grand old Colonial Hall, an historic building in the heart of town. My mother was overseeing every detail, from the floral arrangements to the guest list to the charity auction items. It was her moment to shine. And I intended to dim that shine, permanently. I needed an in. I couldn't just walk into the gala. My mother would have me removed immediately. I needed to be invisible, yet present. And that's when I remembered my old photography hobby. Before Mark, before Lily, before the chaos, I used to love photography. I even had a decent camera gathering dust in a box of my old things back at my mother's house. But I couldn't get it. "Aunt Carol," I asked one evening, "do you happen to have an old camera around? A good one?" She thought for a moment. "I used to have your uncle's old Nikon. He was quite the amateur photographer. It's probably in the attic, if it hasn't disintegrated by now." A few days later, Aunt Carol descended from the attic, dusty but triumphant, holding a heavy camera bag. Inside was an old, but still very capable, Nikon D90. It was perfect. I spent hours refamiliarizing myself with the settings, practicing shots, getting back into the rhythm of the lens. This camera would be my weapon. My first target was a seemingly innocuous online forum for local photographers. I posed as a budding enthusiast, looking for opportunities to build my portfolio. Soon enough, I found a post from a struggling event planner, looking for an affordable photographer for the Gala for Gables. The original photographer had backed out at the last minute. This was it. My chance. I contacted the event planner, offering my services at a significantly reduced rate, explaining I was just starting out but had a passion for capturing special moments. I sent her a few sample photos I'd taken around Aunt Carol's farm, pictures of flowers, old barns, Lily laughing in a field. She was impressed enough to give me a shot. The irony wasn't lost on me. My own mother, without knowing it, was essentially hiring me to document her downfall. The day of the gala arrived, a crisp autumn evening. I dressed in a simple black dress, blending into the background, my camera slung around my neck. I felt a thrill of nervous excitement, a cold, hard determination. Lily was safe with Aunt Carol, who was fully aware of my intentions, offering a silent nod of encouragement as I left. As I walked into the Colonial Hall, the opulent decor, the glittering chandeliers, the hum of polite chatter, it all felt surreal. My mother was everywhere, flitting from table to table, laughing a little too loudly, accepting compliments with a practiced, self-satisfied smile. She looked radiant, perfectly coiffed, dressed in a shimmering gown. She didn't see me. She wouldn't have recognized me anyway, not with the years and the pain etching new lines on my face, and not with her own self-absorption. I spent the first hour doing my job, taking professional shots of the guests, the decorations, the auction items. I needed to maintain my cover, to be an invisible observer. But as the evening progressed, I began my real work. I started taking candid shots, focusing not on the glamour, but on the subtle cracks in the facade. I captured my mother's dismissive wave at a junior committee member who tried to offer a suggestion. I got a shot of her whispering something cutting to a woman who had dared to wear a similar dress. I zoomed in on the strained smile she gave to an elderly donor she clearly found tedious. I photographed the moments when her mask slipped, revealing the sharp, calculating woman underneath. My mother, completely unaware of my presence, was in her element. She took the stage to give a speech, her voice oozing with false humility as she spoke of community and compassion. I filmed her entire speech, focusing on her exaggerated gestures, the the subtle sneer that would flit across her face when she thought no one was looking. But the real piece de resistance came during the live auction. My mother was overseeing the bidding for a particularly extravagant vacation package. A wealthy, but notoriously frugal, businessman named Mr. Henderson was bidding against another couple. My mother, wanting to drive the price up, kept subtly goading Mr. Henderson, flattering his ego, until he was trapped in a bidding war far beyond what he intended. His face, as he finally won the package at an exorbitant price, was a mixture of pride and immediate regret. I captured it all, every forced smile, every panicked glance at his wife. The night was a blur of flashes, clicks, and the simmering satisfaction of knowing I was gathering irrefutable evidence. When the gala finally ended, and I packed up my equipment, I felt a sense of calm, a quiet power. The first phase of my revenge was complete. Over the next few days, I meticulously edited the photos and videos. I didn't need to manipulate anything. The truth, in vivid detail, was enough. I created a carefully curated online album, a hidden folder, blending it in with the official gala photos I was preparing for the event planner. I also created a few anonymous social media accounts, using VPNs and burner emails, ensuring no trace could lead back to me. Then came the waiting game. I needed the right moment, the perfect catalyst. And it came, ironically, from my mother herself. A week after the gala, an article appeared in the local paper, a glowing profile of my mother, praising her tireless dedication to the community and her selfless leadership of the Gala for Gables. It was accompanied by a flattering photograph of her, beaming, accepting accolades. That was my signal. Under the guise of a concerned community member, I began posting links to my hidden album and videos on local forums, community Facebook groups, and even in the comments section of the newspaper's online article. My anonymous post simply stated, "Is this the real face of our community leader, or a different perspective on the Gala for Gables?" No accusations, no sensationalism, just the raw, unvarnished truth, laid bare for everyone to see. The response was slow at first, then it exploded. People started watching the videos, examining the photos. They saw the snide remarks, the condescending glances, the thinly veiled disdain for those she deemed beneath her. The clip of Mr. Henderson's forced smile at the auction went viral within the local community. People who had long suspected my mother's true nature now had undeniable proof. Whispers turned into murmurs, then into outright discussions. The ladies of the lake, a group fiercely protective of their reputation, were particularly rattled. They valued decorum and respectability above all else. The idea that their esteemed chairwoman was being exposed as a hypocrite and a bully was a scandal they couldn't ignore. The phone calls started. Not to me, of course, but to my mother. Demands for explanations. Accusations. Disappointment. Her carefully constructed world of appearances began to crumble around her. She was forced to step down from her position as chairwoman, then eventually, from the ladies of the lake altogether. Other charitable organizations, wary of the negative publicity, slowly distanced themselves. Her social life, her carefully cultivated network of influential friends, withered. The invitations stopped coming. The hushed whispers followed her everywhere. The article that had once celebrated her became a bitter irony, a testament to her downfall. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I simply observed, a quiet satisfaction settling deep within me. I hadn't destroyed her life, not truly. I had simply shown her true self to the world she valued most. I had made her feel the cold, sharp sting of public disapproval, the isolation of being cast out, just as she had cast out me and Lily. One afternoon, a few months after the gala, I received a phone call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something compelled me to. "Sarah," a familiar voice said, hesitant and small. "My mother." My heart hammered against my ribs. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. There was a long pause. I could almost hear her struggle for words, a rare occurrence for a woman who always had an answer for everything. I wanted to say. She started, then trailed off, her voice thick with something I couldn't quite place. Was it regret? Shame? To say what, Mom? I pressed, a coldness settling in my chest. That you're sorry? For what? Kicking your granddaughter out in the rain? For years of making me feel like I was never good enough? For destroying everything I had, then casting me aside? Another silence, longer this time. Then, a shaky sigh. I realize now, what I did was wrong. I was angry. And scared. I acted terribly. I know I hurt you. And Lily. My jaw tightened. This wasn't the tearful, heartfelt apology I might have once craved. It sounded rehearsed, forced. It felt like she was more sorry for the consequences she faced than for the pain she inflicted. It's a little late for that, Mom, I said, my voice unwavering. You made your choice. You showed me who you truly are. And I believe you. But I'm your mother, she pleaded, a hint of desperation creeping into her tone. We're family. Family doesn't abandon each other, I countered, my voice cracking slightly despite my efforts to remain composed. Family doesn't hurt each other the way you hurt us. You chose your pride, your image, over your own daughter and granddaughter. And now you're living with the consequences of that choice. Can't we fix this, she asked, a tremor in her voice. I miss Lily. The mention of Lily made a fresh wave of anger wash over me. No, I said, my voice firm, resolute. There's nothing to fix. What's done is done. You don't get to hurt us and then expect to waltz back into our lives when things get tough for you. This isn't about me anymore, Mom. It's about protecting Lily. And you're a danger to her. I heard a small gasp on the other end, then a sniffle. Was she crying? I didn't care. The image of Lily shivering on that porch, her tiny body shaking with fear, was burned into my memory, a constant reminder of why I had to be strong. Goodbye, Mom, I said, my finger already hovering over the end call button. Don't call us again. And then, I hung up. The silence that followed was deafening, yet strangely peaceful. There was no elation, no triumphant cheer. Just a quiet, profound sense of closure. The knot in my stomach had finally loosened. A few months later, I had saved enough money to rent a small apartment in a neighboring town, a cozy place with a sunny window and a small patch of grass for Lily to play in. I had a steady job, and Lily was thriving in her new school. Aunt Carol visited often, a constant, loving presence in our lives. She was the family I chose, the one who had truly shown me unconditional love. Lily, thankfully, was resilient. She rarely mentioned Grandma Susan anymore, her memories of that terrible night slowly fading, replaced by the warmth of Aunt Carol's hugs and the stability of our new life. Sometimes, she would ask, Mommy, why doesn't Grandma Susan visit anymore? And I would simply say, Grandma Susan made some choices that hurt us, sweet pea. And sometimes, when people hurt you, you have to protect your heart. It was a simple truth, one I hoped she would understand as she grew older. I never saw my mother again, not in person. I would occasionally hear snippets of news through Aunt Carol, that my mother had become even more isolated, that her house, once so immaculate, was now showing signs of neglect. But those stories, those distant echoes of her lonely existence, didn't bring me joy. They simply reinforced the undeniable truth, sometimes, the greatest punishment isn't inflicted by another person, but by the choices you make yourself. As for me and Lily, we were more than survivors. We were thriving. We had found our own strength, our own joy, our own family. And the rain, the cold, the darkness of that night, had ultimately led us to a brighter, warmer place. It had broken me, yes, but only so I could rebuild myself, stronger and more fiercely protective than ever before.